And greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. My name is Steve Deace. His name is Aaron McIntyre, and his name is Todd Erzin. Tell us your name by emailing the program, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Also, look for my name, Steve Deace, on Facebook, on MeWe, on Gab. Follow me on Twitter at Steve Deace Show, all one word. And then check out where you can get clips of the show that you can sample yourself and then share with others at youtube.com/Steve Deace and then rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. Also, my most recent book, A Nefarious Carol, is still out, still doing well. Please make sure to get your copy if you haven't already, especially as we begin to really dive into it tomorrow on Theology Thursday. Thanks to all of you that have gotten copies already. I just signed a big batch of nameplates for autographed copies yesterday for the publisher, so you can get more of those via Premier Collectibles. The link for those is pinned at the top of both my Facebook and Twitter accounts, so if you want to bypass Amazon altogether and get an autographed copy of A Nefarious Carol, the sequel to A Nefarious Plot. More news on that in just a moment, by the way. Little surprise for you guys. Get your copy right now, either through Premier Collectibles, the autographed version, or you can go to Amazon where the Audible version is performed by my oldest daughter and I. So thanks to all of you. Got a lot of kind comments about those performances. Thank you, especially hers. Leave us a 5-star review at Amazon if you liked the book, the performance, the story, etc. I mentioned we have some news. We are hoping to begin filming A Nefarious Plot by, what should I say? Memorial Day. We are hoping this Memorial Day.
Wow.
We are hoping to begin filming by then. Now, we'll see if we make that deadline or not, but that is clearly a sign we're very happy with the progress we are making on the script front, because that's the key. Right. Everything else, from what I understand, when you make a movie, everything else you can put a deadline on. You can't put a deadline on how long does it take to get a good script. The answer is as long as it takes. Because if the script is bad, the movie's not good. Right? I mean, how many movies have we been to that have massive budgets, I should say in English, huge bells and whistles? I think of the last Transformers film. It had friggin' Anthony Hopkins in it. Okay. I mean, one of the great actors of this generation, right? Anthony Hopkins, $200 million of a budget. That movie is complete and total trash. It's trash. You can't overcome a bad script. So it takes as long as it takes, but I think we're close to getting there. So we're excited.
I'm impressed you can cast a movie apparently as quickly, assuming, let's say that it's done at the end of February for argument's sake. I still think casting a movie in 3 months sounds impressive to me.
That's true. There's reasons for why that might work. I don't want to say quite yet, but because I don't want to spoil anything. But on the positive side, there's not a lot in production right now because of what's going on with COVID. There's more in production than you think, but there's not nearly the levels of production that we would typically see, particularly in our country. That's the good news. The bad news, though, is given the subject matter the film is going to address, there's a certain, barring providential favor, there's a certain chunk of the talent pool that is just is going to be off limits, you know? So, but that the fact that there's not a lot of production going on right now, and folks still got bills to pay, that could be to our favor.
Yeah.
We're kind of counting on that. All right, coming up on the show today, no weekly prophet of woe and lamentation. He has the week off. He is in Nevada with a bunch of his podcast listeners, venting his frustration with guns. Right. That is the most Daniel Horowitz vacation ever.
He's going to come back from that looking fresh.
Yes, I'm going on vacation with a lot of guns. That is, nothing is more Daniel Horowitz than that. All right, come join me where we shoot a lot. All right, that's how we let off steam around here. So we've got a full hour of buy, sell, or hold for you next hour. At the bottom of this hour, we're going to talk to a member of the Arizona State Legislature who has been banned from Twitter for doing exactly what the media has been caught doing on numerous occasions. We will get her story and talk about that here at the bottom of the hour. But before we get to all of that, here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by day one of the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump. Democrats started the affair with their natural habitat, emotional manipulation within a 10-minute video montage of the events and events surrounding January 6th.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Yeah! Let's take the Capitol. Take the Capitol. Take the Capitol. We are going to the Capitol.
Trump attorney Bruce Castor said some stuff.
Will not hear any member of the team representing former President Trump say anything but in the strongest possible way denounce the violence of the rioters and those that breached the Capitol, the very citadel of our democracy.
The Senate voted yesterday to affirm the constitutionality of the impeachment trial. Moving on, the White House announced its audacious plans for school reopening yesterday.
His goal that he set is to have the majority of schools, so more than 50%, open by day 100 of his presidency. And that means some teaching in classrooms, so at least one day a week. Hopefully it's more.
Mask update, Dr. Anthony Fauci says,
if we can get 70 to 85% of our population vaccinated and get to what we would hope would be to a degree of herd immunity, which really is an umbrella or a veil of protection against the community, where the level of virus is so low, it's not a threat at all, then at that point you could start thinking in terms of not having to have uniform wearing of masks. But we're certainly not near there yet. When do I think that would occur? You know, it's very difficult to predict, Brett, but if everything falls into the right place and we get this under control, it is conceivable that you might be able to pull back a bit on some of the public health measures as we get into the late fall of this year. But
headline from The Hill, South Dakota governor shares photo of over a dozen staffers, mostly maskless, at her house. Moving on, LA Times op-ed, what can you do about the Trumpites next door? The author of the op-ed, Virginia Heffernan, goes on to complain about how her next-door neighbors, Trump supporters, plowed her driveway of snow without being asked and did a great job. She then goes on to compare her neighbors to the terrorist group Hezbollah. We'll stay in California, where another public official there has been caught throwing a party against coronavirus guidelines. Contra Costa County District Attorney Diana Becton revealed on Facebook that she invited between 25 to 30 guests to her home for a party. The Dallas Mavericks of the NBA have ceased playing the national anthem before their home games. This comes at the request of the billionaire celebrity owner of the team, Mark Cuban. Quaker Oats has finally announced they've erased a black person from some of their brands and replaced her with an inanimate object. The artist, formerly known as Aunt Jemima Syrup and Pancake Mix, is now known as Pearl Milling Company. What began as a funny story of a stupid woman putting Gorilla Glue on her hair thinking it was hairspray has now descended into, you guessed it, racism. After Tessica Brown threatened to sue the company for not warning specifically about use of the product on hair. One idiot named Xavier Pope, who has a byline at The Athletic and Forbes magazine, tweeted, quote, Gorilla Glue, hair is not skin. Your product failed to adequately warn, knowing hair glue in fact exists and many black women use their glue as hair adhesive, and for this, your company is liable. You should have given her a sponsorship deal. Instead, you will be held accountable. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked what the president's message is to girls being forced to compete in sports against biological males.
I would just say that the president's belief is that trans rights are human rights, and that's why he signed that executive order. And in terms of the determinations by universities and colleges, I would certainly defer to them.
New York Times headline, Will American ideas tear France apart? Some of its leaders think so. Subhead, politicians and prominent intellectuals say social theories from the United States on race, gender, and post-colonialism are a threat to French identity and the French Republic. Essentially, the story outlines how the United States is increasingly too woke for the French people. And finally, every montage we've ever produced over the last 2 to 3 years has been leading up to this point. For those of you listening, what we're watching is a lawyer appearing before a telecourt on Zoom. He doesn't realize, however, that he's got a filter on his Zoom call that turns him into a kitten.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to
We're trying to. Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that.
And that's what happened while we were away.
That's a hell of a Joe Biden impersonation, by the way. Let's get to the montage, shall we? That last story you had, I was prepared to address 3 or 4 things coming out of the montage, but I'd seen most of what else is in here. Except I just found out Gorilla Glue is racist. I mean, I did IQ of 9. You didn't know not to put Gorilla Glue in your hair. You didn't know that.
That's your white privilege talking, Steve.
Okay. Anyway, to have the French
dunk
come at you and say, "Is this for real? Are y'all for real with this?"
That intruder, you so dumb.
Keep in mind, this is a civilization that when Francois Mitterrand, their longtime president, when he died quite a while ago now, more than a decade ago, I believe, the country applauded as both his wife and mistress appeared at his funeral. Okay. This is a country, I want to say something like 2% of the population in France is evangelical. Like 2. I mean, this is a country where the old Catholic, iconic Catholic parishes, well, when they weren't burnt down, did we ever find out, by the way, what happened to the Cathedral at Notre Dame? Do we still not know what happened there? It's been 3 years. Do we know? I don't know. I'm asking. Were we given a cause of fire? Do we know?
I'm not entirely sure what the official account is.
Do we know why one of my all-time heroes as a kid, do we know why Hank Aaron died yet? I mean,
who's that?
We know he got the COVID vaccine like on January 6th, right? And then he died a couple weeks later.
Never heard of him.
Do we know why Hammer and Hank died? Anybody? No. Okay. Do we have a motive for the Vegas shooter yet? Do we know what happened there? Do we know?
No.
Should I stop now? Because you look like you want to hurt someone, so I'll stop.
That's anyway, just my face.
Yes.
All the time.
Back to France. Keep in mind, this is also a culture that is 20 years beyond us from a Western de-churching, secularization standpoint. I mean, they're a full generation ahead of us. And even they are like, what in the Sam Hill is going on there with you guys? Here's a couple things you don't know about France, though. Nuclear power is replete throughout France. It's one of their primary ways of powering their country is nuclear.
I remember being in France and being shocked at how many of those steam stacks I saw.
Here's something else you may not know. Late-term abortion has been banned in France for a long time. You can't have one. You can here. We're like one of the 6 countries or something left in the world where you can still do this, but you can't do it in France. So I'm beginning to wonder, because we had these conversations about Sweden last year, that how did this go from a country that every leftist in America said we had to be more like, to then every leftist in America, then finally, when something was going on there, that those of us for freedom and liberty were like, okay, Sweden, tell me more. Remember last summer when I was researching what it would take to actually live in Sweden, remember?
Yes.
Okay. So now when we're finally like, okay, on our side, sure, tell us more. They suddenly don't know that a Sweden exists. That is when they're not actively lying about what's going on there, right? And so we were trying to figure out, how did the country that gave us Greta Thunberg exported that, whatever that is, to the rest of the world? How did that country become the control group against global COVID fascism? And to reference our good friend Daniel Horowitz again, I thought he had a fascinating hypothesis to answer this, which is that the statists there already have all the power that they want. And so therefore, they don't have an incentive to go full Rahm Emanuel where you never let a good crisis go to waste. And they don't. And now they have all the power they want. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want. It's one of the most secular countries in Europe. Is Sweden, by the way. They don't want to destroy themselves, so they're going to be honest about the science. Like when you saw the big commercial promoting Norway during the Super Bowl. That's the country whose health ministers looked at masks and said, this won't work. We'd have to mask everybody professionally. We'd have to mask like 400,000 people to stop 1% of infections. It's just not feasible. So I think that's a fascinating theory that Daniel had, that that you reach a certain point where you now have, you're not communists, you're progressives, you're statists. And you reach a certain point where you have now the power that you want. And then you're like, okay, well, we don't want to destroy our country over a scam. We can't use it to our advantage, so let's tell the truth about it. I wonder if France has reached that point. You know, where the law of diminishing returns, by continuing to go down these roads, and then ultimately, when you've used those paths to acquire the power that you want, you know, common sense prevails at some point. Just curious. Now, France, of course, has been mired in months and months and months and months and months of COVID insanity and COVID lockdowns as well. But to get lectured to about losing your mind culturally by France,
I will not be bullied, Steve.
Yes. Thank you, Ditch. Sure. Why not?
I'm half expecting Sodom and Gomorrah from the grave to be giving us the Jonah Hill gift pretty soon.
I don't want to hear any complaining from California. No. Nope. This is what y'all have voted for. Time after time after time. Well, Steve, I live here. I didn't vote for this. Well, you stayed. You give your tax money to it. So, no. Zero sympathies. I have none. Negative integers. Accept your reward in full. You consented to this. You wanted this. You're the People's Republic of California. Come back to me when you have a successful recall of Gavin Newsom. Get rid of him. And he's not replaced by somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger, where you're going to get all the same policies, just a guy with an R after his name. Come back to me when you do something. Until then, kneel before Zod. Shut your hole, know your role, and you should consider yourselves fortunate that the people you empowered are exactly who they were before you empowered them. I mean, a lot of us, we deal with politicians who say one thing and then do another, right?
Yes.
I mean, these people were corrupt, hypocritical authoritarians before you elected them. And then you elected them on a platform of being corrupt, hypocritical authoritarians. And now that they're in office, they are, of course, corrupt, hypocritical authoritarians. This is what you invested in. You voted for this. Why are you complaining? No one should complain. They should be celebrated, in fact. This is the culmination. You may count it as suffering, but it is your salvation. This is what you voted for. Take it. Every last ounce of it. Take it all. You earned it. Now, I do want to extend some form of grace and mercy to this columnist from the LA Times. It's not like she's accustomed to being plowed. When you consider when you write for the LA Times, you probably don't know a lot about snow removal etiquette, right?
Okay. I'm not even sure who you are right now.
White stuff fell from the sky.
Yes,
and then
what is
these
that?
Nazis
Yes.
came and
Yes.
got it off of my driveway.
Yes. Because if there's one thing that they know a lot about as well, within Hezbollah, I mean, we've seen them roll out legions and armies of snowplows. You know, you see them all throughout the Middle East, constantly, a constant array of snowplows, just viciously removing all the snow from the West Bank. Todd, your thoughts? What did you think I was talking about?
I don't know anymore. I was broken by that whole montage. We're going crazy in real time.
You're broken by the fact people didn't know not to put Gorilla Glue in their hair, and France is telling us we've gone too far left. That's a breaking point for you.
It is.
Yeah. Well, that's completely and totally understandable. Now, let's get to Fauci. There's two things going on here. And because it's Anthony Fauci, they both are. If you want to know how you stay in power as a bureaucrat for as long as he has, you just give every position on every issue to everybody. And you simultaneously have everybody hate you and love you at the exact same time, and then love you and then hate you. Because we could just sit here for you, and we've done it in the past. Those episodes are in our archives. We could just sit here for you and chronicle Anthony Fauci in his own words, literally taking every conceivable position on COVID-19. He even used a dirty word in the clip that you played, Aaron.
Did you catch that?
Did you catch that?
Oh, yeah.
Did you catch that, Aaron?
No, I don't think I did.
You didn't? He dropped the term herd immunity on. Now, let me tell you how
Hates grandma.
Let me tell you how a bureaucrat like Anthony Fauci, the most dangerous and powerful bureaucrat in American history. Let me tell you how this works. I'm on Fox News, so I pander to this audience and drop a term like herd immunity. When I'm on CNN, I tell that audience herd immunity is not really a thing. It's dangerous. I mean, we can't sit here and game plan for herd immunity, because we've heard him say that too, right?
Yes.
Yes. He will say whatever you want him to say, because it's just the Church of Anthony Fauci. So there he is on Fox in Aaron's clip, dropping herd immunity. Now, there's two ways to look at what he's doing here. I've seen a bunch of my cohorts in conservative media, and they're probably right, say that he's moving the goalpost by saying, hey, we're going to be able to get rid of masks and a lot of these restrictions by later this year, later in the fall. Is that what he said in the clip?
Yes.
Later in the fall? Okay. Joe Biden, I think the president yesterday, I think, mentioned something about Thanksgiving. All right. So they're moving the goalpost so they can just keep doing this into perpetuity. A lot of my peers in conservative media I've seen respond that way before we came on the air today. And I think they're right. But I have a counter explanation to this, which I also think is correct. And when I say it, it will completely and totally contradict the previous assertion. And you'll ask yourself, how can these things both be true? Pardon me. Marco Rubio moment there. Because we're talking about Anthony Fauci. He just tells whatever audience wants to hear something, pretty much what they want to hear. So here's the other option. We're down 50% positive, 50% case rate from the last peak we had on, what was it, the 11th of January, I believe. Hospitalizations around the country down over 30% since then for COVID. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take a while for us to get to herd immunity. I think it's going to take a while for us to get there, guys. Probably looking at later in the fall. President said yesterday, Thanksgiving. And then warm weather hits. They've got to rebound the economy. It's a miracle, guys. We thought it was going to be November, but our mitigation efforts worked. You guys listen to us. Like our latest CDC study, we put masks on mannequins, and you did exactly what we said, because that's what human beings behave like with a mask. They sit perfectly still, do not move, and so that would be a perfect a perfect analog for how a human being would respond, a human immune system would respond with a mask on, because we are mannequins. We don't move, we don't gyrate, we don't tilt our heads. We are perfectly stationary in all things. So of course there's a corollary. But we got the big win. So we're going to start rolling this stuff back. 4th of July weekend. And you claim victory. I think that's every bit as possible here too. How can these things both be true? Well, because, do I want to say this? Yeah, I do. I think Fauci is full aware that these mitigation efforts don't work. Full aware. I think he knows this data, knows the data better than I do. And so you set up both scenarios, and whatever the data is at the time, you choose the scenario that is politically beneficial to you. We get into the springtime. If we see another round of surges as people get outside again, you say, hey, remember I told you this is going to take a while. We get into the warmer weather, and the percentage in case drops that we're seeing right now plummet all the more because respiratory viruses don't like warm weather. You claim victory and say, hey, it worked. I thought I thought this was going to take until November, but here we are, 4th of July weekend. Here we are, Labor Day weekend. You know, Fauci's on Football Night in America, opening Thursday night for the NFL, welcoming the fans back in the stands. I think both scenarios are plausible. I think they are fully aware that the virus has got a virus. I think they're fully aware of it. Well, I think Fauci's fully aware of it. I do think there are people in government just hardened with a progressive worldview that they can control all forms of matter on Earth. I do think that. I don't believe Fauci thinks that. Because if he did, he wouldn't go on Fox News like ever. He wouldn't even go on, number one, let alone go on there and drop the term herd immunity. See, I think he knows all this data that we talk about all the time. I think he knows it all. That's why I think he takes both sides of all these issues all the time. He's promoting Fauci. And whatever data set empowers the brand, we go with. So if being the prophet of woe and doom works, we do that. If, hey, I want to, last year I got to throw out the first pitch for the Washington Nationals, and this year I want to welcome the fans back on Football Night in America on NBC this September, I'm going to do that. And then we just wait and see what the actual pathology of the outbreak is at any given time, and that's the position we take. Thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that if a guy like that is able to convince this country, founded in freedom, of that, already to this point, I think we deserve a certain level of indictment. But if we continue to do this, if we see the double mask advice and we accept it we don't deserve to exist anymore. This is just a level of cosmic stupid and cowardice that I hope gets punished. I'm sickened. I'm absolutely sickened by what I've seen today already.
I think that theory makes sense. I also just think that this is going to continue until it hurts them politically not to. Or until it hurts them politically to continue lockdowns, all these virus mitigation efforts, what have you. I mean, today, I saw that it's expected the Biden administration is going to side with the teachers' unions in the fight to reopen schools in certain districts. There's also it's a fluid situation, guys. I mean, big pharma, hey, they want to make this a yearly thing. No doubt. Yearly COVID shot. Is that going to get worked into all of this as well? It's a fluid situation, Steve.
Indeed it is, as are the opinions and analyses of Anthony Fauci. Those are fluid as well. Almost time for one of my favorite times of the day. It is almost Built Bar time, where with Built Bar, you don't have to make a choice between eating healthier or eating tastier. You get both. It is the absolute best protein bar you've ever had, and there is no close second. Trust me, I have tried many over the last several years, and the texture is like that of a Three Musketeers bar. Well over 20 flavors. They're about to launch a brand new one actually this week, and I know what it is, and wow, does it sound good. I don't think I can quite tell you what it is yet. Okay, but yikes. I mean, this one's going to be popular. All of them covered in real chocolate. Any lifestyle you live, if you're low cal, these things are 180 calories or less. If you're low carb, like keto, 3 to 5 carbs per bar or less. If you're into low fat, low sugar, 5 grams of sugar or less in every bar. So everything you're looking for, you're going to find with Built Bar. And if you've not tried them before, get 20% off your first order right now on the website at BuiltBar.com. That's BUILT, BuiltBar.com, and use my last name, Deace, as the promo code for that discount. If you've tried them before and you want to try them again, get 20% off your next order as well with the promo code Deace at BuiltBar.com. Again, BuiltBar.com, promo code Deace. So we've seen stories recently where members of the media, of the mainstream media, have gone online. There was the case where CNN basically tried to ruin a guy for posting that meme of Trump dunking them. And the WWF meme, remember that?
Yes.
Okay. It's called doxing or unmasking, where essentially, because you're mad that Pez Dispenser 42 got the drop on you on Reddit. You dox, or you find out who this guy is or person is, and you dox them, you unmask them in order to bring scorn and ridicule. And we have seen mainstream media do this on numerous occasions the last few years. So how about when you're threatened? Is it okay? When you're a woman threatened by another guy, is it okay? Is it okay to unmask somebody who's threatening you? That would seem to be more of an instance of justification, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Than I'm CNN, I don't like this meme, right?
If it's a real threat.
If it's a real threat, sure.
And not just a David French Vapors threat.
Sure. Well, apparently that should be how it works, unless you are you're an elected representative in the state of Arizona, and you're concerned about election irregularities in the country and in your state. Then apparently it doesn't work that way. Michelle Ugenti is a state representative in Arizona. She joins us today on BlazeTV radio and podcast. Michelle, my name is Steve Deace. How are you? Did we lose her?
And it looks like we just lost her.
All right, we're going to try and get her back. Now, this is a bit of a sensitive, we'll try one more time here to see if we can get her back. This is a sensitive subject, right? Because we don't want to apply a double standard. It's okay to unmask. It's okay to dox if somebody wearing our uniform does it to somebody else. But it should be kind of a universal thing that if you're threatening somebody online, that should be kind of the red line, right? A real threat.
That's fair.
Okay. Do we have her now? All right, Michelle, my name is Steve Deace. Welcome to BlazeTV radio and podcast. How are you, Michelle?
I'm very well. Thank you so much.
So we kind of teed your story up for our audience. Just take it from there. What's your story? Who came after you? How did they do it, and why?
Right. So I have been very vocal on a multitude of media platforms advocating for election integrity, opening up the state of Arizona, getting our kids back to school. Side note, I think these are very common sense proposals, and I haven't shied away from them. Because of that, I attract a certain level of attention from those who disagree. That's fine with me. I have no problem with it. However, one individual decided for months and months and months he was going to troll me, use very graphic, disgusting, sexist language. I won't repeat it, but if you can think of the worst, he said it and sent it my way on Twitter. So he would tweet horrible things. And I all of a sudden I said to myself, who is this person? I responded back, show your face, put your identity on what you have to say. Otherwise, crawl back in the hole that you came out of. And someone tipped me off that they thought that this was a certain individual in our community. I did my own research and background investigating, and I was able to come up with his identity and find his identity, and I simply exposed his identity on Twitter. And from there, he initially denied calling me all the names that he did, and he also incited violence, telling his followers to shoot people and shoot to kill, and everyone was a Nazi, everyone's a whore, all that kind of stuff. He had denied that, but the evidence was overwhelming. He had then admitted to having the troll account, and then there was some stuff that happened after that, but in terms of Twitter, I ultimately, a few days later, was suspended because I had reposted information that he had already put out on social media identifying him, and they said that I had violated Twitter's community standards.
Was he banned for posting threats to you? Was he suspended?
No, he was not. He did remove and deactivate his account, but only after I exposed his identity. And then he did it on his own. So this account was allowed to exist for months. I don't know what I can say on radio.
Yeah, I've read some of what was there, and it's vile stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's vile stuff.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be respectful. Yes. So, that was able to exist. And yes, a lot of it was hurled my direction, but there was a lot at other female conservative politicians and other conservatives. I mean, he made no bones about it. He was going after what he thought was right-wing conservatives. And only after I exposed his identity did he deactivate his account. But then ultimately, when Twitter decided to intervene, I was suspended.
Wow. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but sadly, given what's going on, I mean, I just got a note from our social team this morning. We put out a video yesterday on Facebook, on all of our social media accounts, pointing out that the flu has literally disappeared this year, when at this time last year, CDC was poised to put it above the epidemic line. We had so much flu going on around the country. Last week, they reported a total of 25 specimens in their entire allocation report. And we put out a video explaining what those numbers mean, why a lot of the common excuses for why the flu disappeared don't line up. The video was performing well, but Facebook's quote-unquote science team is afraid of actual science. So we're going to let the video expire on Facebook while we let it go to other platforms, because that's the sort of censorship we deal with all of the time. But that's nothing compared to the situation that you faced with the kinds of threats and language that I looked at. That double standard, you would think at the very least they would issue a permanent, especially because he already deactivated his account. They could just permanently ban him, Michelle, and look good doing it. You know what I mean? You're a politician. No, you know what I'm talking about. The heavy lifting was already done. They could permanently ban a guy that disabled his account already, and then come at you, and then they could make it look like they were fair here. The fact they didn't even do that is pretty blatant.
Well, you bring up a great point, and it really it shows the disparate treatment, and it shows, in my opinion, that they have an agenda. I mean, I on the flu thing, in Arizona, flu cases in Arizona are down by 95% compared to 2020 and 2021 data. That's insane. I'm constantly posting about the COVID-19 mitigation measures that have crippled our economy. And every time I do, and I have supporters respond to my tweets respectfully, but they certainly, agree with the sentiment. Twitter puts out, alerts, and they either ban you or suspend you or make some kind of note. But this individual was able to use whore dozens and dozens of times, and that doesn't trigger Twitter to do anything. And that's what I think the public needs to realize, and I think what they really are becoming suspicious about. You have these social media platforms promoting their agenda. They are not a free platform where we're exchanging ideas and thoughts in a place. They are arbitrarily putting their hand on the scales and making it very difficult for people who have different perspectives, different points of view from articulating them. That's dangerous. We need to expose it. And I think my particular situation does a good job exposing that, and hopefully the public catches on and realizes they don't need to have these social media platforms to engage one another. Maybe we have to go back to the traditional way of picking up the telephone or knocking on someone's door or having meetings. But it's a kind of scary time that we're in.
The gentleman, by the way, who was harassing you and threatening you, I mean, this is not some inbred who doesn't get out much and is unaware of the power of a platform. He is a longtime employee of the San Francisco Giants in Major League Baseball. He was their spring training announcer. His name is Josh Miller is his name. And I don't know if he's any relation to John Miller, the great longtime Giants actual play-by-play announcer. But
right.
you would think a guy that spent 18 years as a stadium announcer for a Major League Baseball club would understand and the power of a platform and what the cost of utilizing it in such a malfeasant way might be. Meaning that this wasn't some guy, some bitter guy sitting in his basement in between sips of Code Red and mom doing his laundry. He's incensed at some Arizona state legislator because he watched too much Joy Reid last night. This guy has worked behind a microphone for 20 freaking years for a Major League Baseball team. He ought to be a little bit more sophisticated than this.
Well, that's exactly right. He also does the sports announcing for local high schools in my district. He is part of my district's community, and to your point, you would think he would be a little bit more cognizant and sophisticated and realize that taking this kind of approach, having an anonymous account where you attack viciously, threaten violence, have misogynistic comments could potentially backfire. But that kind of disconnect is really part of the issue. It shows you how righteous he thinks he is, and the hypocrisy is alarming.
Yeah, he's justified in unpersoning you, as Orwell would put it. Yes, he's justified in it. Yeah.
Right. Right. Exactly. He is justified. What I have done to promote opening our state and other things that maybe he disagrees with, election integrity, he thinks is a fair justification to attack someone personally and hopefully probably cause them professional harm, personal harm. It's kind of the end justifies the means approach to life, which is not a good one. And I'm glad that he was called out, and hopefully it sends a message to anonymous trolls that it's not that safe for you. And I'm glad, I don't know if you know this, but Twitter ultimately, when confronted with the issue, and because it was gaining a lot of attention, had to come out and say they made a, quote, mistake for banning me. And which was surprising. They usually never change course.
They're reticent about admitting any mistakes there. Or they admit, or Jack goes to Congress and admits mistakes, but then they don't actually undo the mistake that they made. So consider yourself fortunate there for sure. Michelle, thank you very much for telling your story and joining us today here on Blaze TV radio and podcast, and keep up the good work there in Arizona. Okay. God bless.
God bless.
All right, gentlemen, your thoughts on that conversation?
Well, it works the other way as well on this. It's not quote unquote private citizens going after anonymously, or private citizens with an account, with a public persona going after politicians. It's also the other way around. Remember, it was a couple of years ago, we had just a local city council, actually the local mayor pro tempore of one of the largest suburbs here in Des Moines. He made a joke about child pornography at your expense, so I went and found him.
I forgot about that.
He thought he was being anonymous, so I called him out on it. He went after you again earlier this year. Yeah. I called him out again. He literally deleted his account. I found his new account. I went after him there. He deleted that one, and now he's at a completely different account now.
I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's just totally ridiculous. These people feel like they have an S on their chest when they get behind their keyboard and get on Twitter with no identity whatsoever. And I think this goes back to what Jesse Kelly tweeted the other day. And this was in response to some dude who was accosting this woman who was putting her mask on at a Costco somewhere. There are not enough dudes, not enough boys who can shave in America right now who have taken a punch or two.
Amen to
gotten
that.
knocked down on their butts more than once. And that's where you get behavior like this.
I can look around the fruited plain, Todd, and count and see a whole lot of dudes, or as Aaron put it, boys who can shave, who it's been far too long since they've picked their teeth up off the floor, and that's why they behave like that.
Well, you're going to get your chance because, listen, whether it's this clown, whether it's Antifa, whether it's BLM, whether it's science, listen, they're trying to abort you. This is abortion, the death of an innocent. They have simply decided that you are an irritant to them. And just like that child in the room, you need to go. Unapologetically. They're just fine with it. And increasingly, as we've seen with abortion, over time, they concede, yeah, I mean, it's just, of course it's killing a life, but, whatever. They've shifted their arguments so many times because ultimately they just want what they want. It's no different here. That guy just wanted her rubbed out. And they're going to do it over and over again. And I'm sorry, until you get clear that you may just have to stop in a way that you think is uncomfortable and civil, that's not how we do things. Okay, have fun.
Remember this quote from Ice-T a couple of years ago: social media has too many of you comfortable with disrespecting people and not getting punched in the mouth for it. Now, we can be metaphorically punched in the mouth, and that's what happened to the gentleman that did this to this state senator. We'll come back. Buy, sell, or hold is next. Stay tuned. And we're back with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. Let us know what you think about what we think. You can email the program, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. You can like us on Facebook, on MeWe, on Gab. Just look for Steve Deace there and like and follow. You can also follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. If you're looking for clips of the show that you can sample yourself and then share with others, like our breakdown yesterday on the flu, go get those videos right now at youtube.com/Steve Deace and rumble.com/Steve Deace Show, and get those videos on the flu yesterday. Share them with all your Branch Covidian friends, because in the video, I answer the objections that they're going to raise to the question. So if you want to see the looks on their faces when their arguments, when their cultic decrees get totally eradicated, go grab those videos right now. YouTube.com/Steve Deace or rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. If you're a podcast listener, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Please, though, show your appreciation for us. Leave us a 5-star review on whichever podcast platform you prefer. Hit the subscribe button as well. The more of you do that, the more it will help the show, the podcast, to grow. And we thank the scores of you, the thousands of you that have done both of those things for us already. This portion of the show brought to you by our friends at Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile has a brand new promotion for you. You can get the Samsung A11 for yourself and someone else. That's 2 phones, absolutely free, or bring your own phone and get a free month of service right now with Patriot Mobile. You'll get the same nationwide coverage because they use the same towers as everybody else. Plus, they've got plans that fit into any budget. Patriot Mobile, the only conservative wireless provider. They'll take a portion of your bill, and instead of doing things with it that you won't approve of, and organizations that are out to end your way of life, they do things like helping supply Bibles for kids instead. Switching is easy. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Steve. That's patriotmobile.com/Steve, or you can call their U.S.-based customer service team right now at 972-PATRIOT. Again, that's 972-PATRIOT. And remember that veterans and first responders, you save even more from Patriot Mobile when you go and check them out. All right. Same service, lower prices, and they celebrate your values as well. Get free activation and a special gift with the offer code Steve at patriotmobile.com/Steve. All right, let's get to it. Our weekly game of buy, sell, or hold. No topic is off limits. Just please don't be dumb. These are a series of topics and suggestions and predictions, prophecies, lists from the audience usually. Maybe every now and then Aaron actually chimes in. Todd, you and I will decide, are we buying it? Are we selling it? And then because of the uncertain times in which we live,
bing,
we are permitted for now anyway, until Fauci says take the masks off, you are permitted to use as many holds as you possibly can. Fair?
So forever.
All right, Aaron, you're up. Let's get to it.
We will start with Vance Steele, who says, assuming 2020 rosters, Tampa Bay becomes the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls since Tom Brady did so with the Patriots.
So,
yeah, I'm going to sell. I think just this is the longest period of time the NFL's gone without a repeat champion. So I would just sell on that alone. It's a high variance league where since 1990, it's on average, there have been 5 new playoff teams every year. We don't know if Gronk will want to come back. Obviously, he was a key player in the Super Bowl. Who knows what the situation is with Antonio Brown on or off the field. I think they have a tremendous young defense that I thought should have actually been the MVP of the Super Bowl. Obviously, Tom Brady is coming off one of the best seasons he's ever had, so he's not going anywhere. The backfield of Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones is back again, I believe. They should be dynamite. I think you're clearly looking at a playoff team. If you look at the division they're in, Drew Brees retiring, you're looking at the Falcons beginning a new era. I think you're going to see. I think you can see their quarterback probably get traded to a place like Indianapolis, perhaps. So that division is more wide open now than it has been in a long time. I mean, that's been one of the toughest and most competitive divisions in the NFL for a long time. So I think they're clearly the divisional favorite, but there's just one injury here, one injury there. It's hard to repeat in the NFL, so I'm going to sell.
Yes, they were an imminently beatable team this year. Congrats on winning the thing, but this is not the reset of the Cowboys or something like that.
Cowboys, you mean like in the 70s? Well, because they haven't been any good really since, or the triplets of the 90s.
Yes,
yeah.
the triplet.
We're going back almost 30 years now. Can you believe that?
I know.
Can you believe that?
Oh, yeah. We're old.
Wow.
Sam Rye says COVID fascism will end once the planet is completely depopulated. Why? Some form of it will continue.
That is a certain way to end it, I suppose. So I'll buy, but I think we're seeing cracks, and I think the cracks are actually accelerating at a rate that is beyond where I thought we were going to be. We're not even a month into the Biden administration. And they have spent more time having to triangulate off the teachers' unions than any other issue since they've been in office. When was the last time that the Democratic Party on a national level was on the defensive because of teacher unions? Ever. I mean, we've talked about them on our side our whole lives, right? But I think there's some definite cracks forming in the COVID fascism, for sure. Might there be some element of it where, hey, if we don't reach these benchmarks, we're going back? I guess it will exist forever to some extent, because that's what happens with government when you set a precedent, right? But I really don't think. I mean, and I don't. That we're going to be sitting here at this time next year debating mask mandates. I don't believe that. I see the fissures forming. I see conversations I wanted us to have for a long time are now being had. And I think with a Democrat in the White House, there's more and more and more pushback to this than there was when Donald Trump was in the White House. So I guess I'll buy that some of it will exist because the precedent has been set. But I think there is a great, just anecdotally, guys. I'm listening to SiriusXM's College Sports Channel on the way in to do the show this morning. And the two guys, it's Rick Neuheisel and the former football coach and some college basketball analyst for ESPN. And they bring in the guy that does the Big Ten show for their network. And the first thing he talks about is, hey, man, our positivity rate here in Illinois for test is down to 3%. That's where he lives. And he starts citing these numbers. I just got my mom the vaccine last week. Positivity rates in Illinois are down to 3%. And I get up this morning and I'm looking forward to going and covering the Big Ten tournament. And I'm being told that it's moving to Indiana. Why the hell is this going on? That's like his first answer. There is a great amount of fatigue with this. That take away the orange man bad factor in the conversation. And it's just about, okay, I now feel more free to ask, when the hell does this end? So I think we're closer to the end of the most militant phase of this than maybe we realize.
I'll sell. Today they're actually coming out with, while double masking is officially the advice of the CDC, which is insane on its face. And also it just also says that, by the way, the masking that we've told you to do this whole time, we've decided it doesn't work, even though we told you it works, it super works, it's better than a vaccine. They're crazy. They're power mad. They have all of the federal government. And by the way, now they're probably going to just start doing the thing where they start taking funding away. The thing that we say would be a good idea to do, but never do on the right. We'll see.
See, everything you just said reinforces why I have the opinion I do. Because it's getting nuttier, it's getting dumber, it's getting more nauseating, more grating, more aggravating, more frustrating. And obviously I was somewhat teasing Californians, including numerous Californians in our audience last hour. But let me take the tongue out of my cheek. In this environment, especially with, they want to, if you get a social media group of any standing that stands up to the system on Facebook, then once your group actually grows, they cancel it and delete the group, right? Okay. It is not easy in this current environment to get nearly 1.5 million people's names on a signature in California to get rid of the governor. Okay. And there's only one reason too. And it has nothing, this isn't Gray Davis and brownouts. There's one reason, there's one thing driving this, and what is it?
COVID and lockdowns?
COVID is. COVID lockdowns are. That's driving this.
Do you think they're going to kick them out, though?
I actually think it might happen.
I don't.
See, because I think all the things you're saying, history shows that when the authoritarians go from saying things that make you think, I guess that sounds reasonable, and I don't want to be seen as unreasonable and divisive. So I guess, we'll go along, to when they say things and the reaction is, what the hell? This is just, I've had enough. I think people are getting to that point from what I see.
Schools have been closed. They're a drunk.
Which is why the Biden administration has to defend the teacher unions every single day.
Look how long they've taken it. Yesterday, you yourself said, I cannot believe they're not giving the money. The Democrats, the obvious play. They've lost their damn mind. They're crazy people.
Okay.
Up next, we have Naturally Contrarian, who says Democrats aren't afraid of overplaying their hands. What were we just talking about? Creating radical, unpopular policies via executive orders because they know they can rig the system and continue winning elections.
Bye.
Now, several of you sent me this yesterday in response to my point that this is one of what they're talking about, which is means testing COVID stimulus relief checks to the point that they won't pay off any of the new suburban voters that they just acquired because of Trump and just alienate them probably right back into the Republican Party. This was the answer many of you gave. Here's why I sell. They can't do that as blatantly because what is the explanation for why this happened last year? What's the explanation for it? What's the explanation for?
For why what happened?
What's the meta explanation provided for all the anomalies in
people just say to Trump.
That's right. Yes. In the turnout anomalies that don't make any sense. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That Donald Trump got more votes from non-whites than any Republican has in 60 years, and lost by 4 or 5 million votes overall. So the Republicans gained 15 House seats without a redistricting or anything else. Stuff that just statistically isn't congruent with the algorithm of an or even just the rhythm of an election. And the official state explanation given was what? That, everybody just hated Donald Trump. That explanation is gone. So we'll see what we'll see. The midterms, by the way, won't test this, because when Fulton County decides it wants to rig an election, allegedly, it wants to rig an election in a midterm, it's only a handful of House seats. That won't determine who controls the House because of the way that House seats are allocated by district. And now Senate races are statewide. As I had to remind Ed Rendell, the former mayor of Philly, former head of the Democratic National Committee, I had to remind him of this once. Him and I were on a panel debating each other on MSNBC, and when I asked him, how do you, if Republicans are unpopular, how do you explain, this was after the 2014 midterms, do you remember this?
Yeah.
And I asked him, how do you explain that you guys just suffered like the worst one swing election loss, Senate election loss since Watergate, one of the worst since Reconstruction? Well, gerrymandering. I said, you can't gerrymander a Senate seat. It's a statewide election. Ed, I'm not sure you know that, but anyway. But it's just not as easy to do that.
He knew it. He's just such a liar.
He's just
hoping you did
gaslighting. Yes.
He's hoping
just
you did.
Counting that I wouldn't get it. You're
Yes.
exactly right. The test of this will be in 2024. Because you know that will be the rationale. The Republicans could nominate Mahatma Gandhi. He's just uniquely unpopular, right? That they're going to say that. That's what they said about Bush. It's what about McCain, Romney, and these are people that are nothing like Trump, and he's nothing like them. So I don't know that this will play as big of a factor in the midterms next year. If we make it to 2024, they'll try it, I would imagine. But I just don't know that it's the rationale for it was the name of Trump. That was the rationale for it. That rationale now is gone. So, and if they do it again anyway, and it's even more obvious next time, and everybody puts up with it, then you got what you deserve then, as far as I'm concerned. You're willing to let them steal elections from you, then that's a you problem, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going with human depravity. Bye.
Up next, Michael Taylor says Governor Greg Abbott will follow Governor Kim Reynolds' example by lifting all COVID-19 restrictions.
You tell me.
I'll sell in, and I'm taking it specific. He may do this at some point, but it's not because he's following her. I think this guy has clearly shown himself to be a very poor reader of the winds.
Remember when we had the border surge down there? Was it in 2018? And remember the day that we went through his Twitter account when that was going on?
Yeah.
And how many days did we go through his Twitter account? It was just not a mention of it, never addressed. Do you remember that show?
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think he's high on his own supply, whatever that is.
Greg Abbott would be Chris Christie if this was New Jersey and not Texas. But because it's Texas and not New Jersey, he can't get away with that. I mean, he is a construct of consultants, is what he is.
But remember what Chad Prather said to us when we were down there? I mean, he was just telling you were trolling him, and he said, "No, you're right, Steve.
We have more free up here.
We're not Texas anymore, so that's why he can clearly get away with it."
When we got back from Dallas, I had loads of emails from Texans mad at me for saying that, and then I had several of them when they saw the announcement, like 48 hours later, that Kim was lifting all the restrictions. All right, you're right. You know? But yeah, we are freer up here than y'all are. Now listen. The fact I could go to your state in January and see lawn that needed mowed kind of rekindled my relocation mistress fervor, knowing what I was coming back to here in Iowa, one of the worst winters we've had in several years. But yeah, we are freer right now than y'all are. I'm going to buy on this because he's a consultant-driven construct. And he's never going to be the guy that takes the lead on stuff. But it's getting... emulating Ron in GOP consultant world, the professional class world that the Greg Abbotts of the world live. And trust me, if Greg Abbott were in New Jersey, he'd be Chris Christie as a governor. But he's not. He's in Texas, so he can't get away with that. So he's a Republicrat. What I used to talk about, the folks when I wrote Rules for Patriots several years ago, folks in red states who know the culture of that state, and then they have to conform to it to a certain extent in order to obtain office. But they're not really with you. And when you're not looking, they'll govern you like as if the Democrats were in charge. That's really Greg Abbott. Emulating Ron DeSantis, the professional class is going to tell somebody like a Greg Abbott, you don't want to be like that guy. Emulating Kim Reynolds is a little bit different. Because let's also face it, how surprised are you and I at how good of a governor she has been?
I've been very surprised.
Shockingly surprised. She's the biggest political surprise I've seen in my career, because she actually comes out of the GOP professional consultant class. She comes out of that class. And so we thought we were going to kind of get the Iowa version of Nikki Haley. And instead, we kind of got the Iowa version of Ron DeSantis instead. None of us thought this was going to happen. None of us did. We're all kind of shocked by it. But so I think it's safer to emulate her than it is DeSantis. So I'm going to buy, because I think she's widened the Overton window for the gutless like Greg Abbott out there.
All right, moving on. Cindy Kay says Trump will have to leave the country to avoid going to jail.
I'm going to sell. I think this is all bluster. The fact that they're doing some ex post facto impeachment instead of going after him as a private citizen for incitement in a criminal court, that's just a cable news talking point. All right. And they have their Lindsey Grahams too, who jump on MSNBC with false bravado and throw raw red meat to their base to orgasm on, that has no chance of ever coming to fruition, that we just react to. By the way, do you think Sean? I asked my Twitter following this yesterday when I saw Lindsey Graham back on with Sean Hannity, promising to subpoena all these Democrats like Cory Booker and stuff. Do you guys think Hannity knows he's getting worked over by Lindsey Graham's PR cavalcade, or is he in on it?
He's in on it.
You think he's just totally in on it?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know. So I don't know. I just wonder, when a guy gets used that many times, particularly by the likes of... Stop right there. That's his... Lindsey friggin' Graham.
That's his whole...
I kind of have to believe you're not that gullible, right? I have to believe you're a co-conspirator. You're an enabler.
He's a multimillionaire and been on air for like 25 years now by embracing... I'll be used that many times.
In fact, it's better if he's the enabler, right? Because if he's that naive and he got that popular and made that much money, I'm going to be very, very depressed about my future prospects in this business. I need him to be an enabling co-conspirator, because then it's hate the game, not the player, right? I can respect that. I can't respect if he's just a useful idiot for the effeminate likes of Lindsey Graham. That I can't respect that on any level. So I kind of need him to be just playing his audience while Lindsey Graham plays him. That I'm actually strangely more comforted by that option.
Up next...
By the way, did you answer the question?
I did.
Okay.
Fish says Biden will advocate for the use of HCQ to treat COVID by the end of the year.
So, no shot. None. Zero. Zilch. Nada. No shot.
Yeah. There's clearly no reason to. It's all about... stagecraft now. I mean, this thing is not, it's doing what viruses do. There won't even be a need for it anymore, which is the great tragedy.
All right, Sam Rye says, buy, sell, hold. The flu is a thing of the past.
That is an interesting question, Todd. Because if this becomes a seasonal thing, where the COVID vaccine is the flu vaccine and a seasonal thing. So I'm yesterday I told you there's two possible reasons. And we're going to talk more about this tomorrow. Our researcher extraordinaire, Kyle Lamb, who has done a lot of excellent work. A lot of it we've used in our own work here on the show. He's going to join us tomorrow to help dig into, because he was really the first person last October to start looking at the flu data and wondering, where did the flu go? And he's got some really good context on that. We're going to talk about with him tomorrow on the show. But there's, as I told you yesterday, there's two legitimate explanations, or there's two explanations. One of them's legitimate. The other one is not. That's the sinister one. So the sinister explanation, as you said yesterday, is, remember when the White House last year, when they had their reopening press briefing that with Debbie Birx, and she put out the map of states that were able to move on to phase 1 of reopening. You remember the map?
Yeah.
And it was COVID-like illnesses, right? Yes. But what was mixed in with COVID?
Influenza.
Influenza was. All right. After telling us for months, it's not just another flu. The first time they show us a map of how we know whether or not we can reopen based on whether you're in the green zone or the light green zone or the red zone or the orange zone is COVID-like symptoms, including, and they included the flu and pneumonia with this. The sinister explanation is that they're just tagging everything with those symptoms as COVID. And there's various reasons why. To up the panic. Big Pharma wants to sell a bunch of vaccines. Orange Man bad, shut the economy down. Who knows? Like it's a collection of it's a menagerie of various motivations. That's one explanation for what's happened to the flu, a sinister one. There is another scientific explanation that isn't sinister and makes perfect sense, actually. The problem with that scientific explanation, and you can research it yourself, I'm not going to make it easy for the haters. The problem with that, but maybe, in fact, I'm going to probably talk with Kyle a little bit about it tomorrow. The problem with that scientific explanation is it repudiates the flat earth voodoo we have been sold and takes us back to what we understood about viruses and immunologies and biologies and pathogens and systems before March 11th of 2019 or 2020. It's what we thought up until that point, but we're not allowed to say anymore, because even if you say it while teaching at places like friggin' Oxford, the #1 university in the world, you're a science denier. If that latter thing is what is happening, then I think it is possible that there's not as much. And I'm going to throw a word out there to give you a clue of what you're looking for if you want to experiment with the science side of this. There's not as much timber, shall we say. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. There's not as much timber out there for the flu to start kindling a fire with, because that space is otherwise occupied. And I could see that if that is the case, I could see something like that. To some degree, yeah, I could see it. A thing of the past, do we mean like gone totally? I would sell, but not something we do major news stories on every season like we did before COVID. I could see that, so I'll buy. That just depends on what you mean thing of the past.
I'm selling. Big Pharma won't allow it.
Got to sell the flu and the COVID vaccines?
Yes.
Okay.
Up next.
All the vaccines, Todd says, all of them.
Space Monkey says we need to start using the term conservaphobia.
I like it. Bye.
Sell. What's to fear? Doesn't do a damn thing. Doesn't threaten anybody.
I like your answer. You know what? I like your answer better. So.
Next, Samuel Clemente says Aaron is slacking ever since his honeymoon. Sell. I can assure you that 60% of the time I slack every time.
I haven't sensed any slacking at all.
No, nor have
actually.
I.
No, so
Nor have I.
I've got to sell. Be glad you don't work for, what's his name?
Samuel Clemente.
Yeah, be glad you don't work for him.
As an ode to that, though, there's so much good. If you should do the slacking montage, what it looks like when you are slacking.
Now, he could be meaning at home.
I love that.
That's a great idea. But he could be talking about Aaron's been slacking at home, right? I mean, got the deed done, did the honeymoon, you know? I'm bathing now once every 3 days. I'm farting regularly out in the open. He could be meaning at the McIntyre house, not here necessarily here at work.
No. In fact, I just got a brush yesterday. A brush for bathing with, so I can actually get even more clean. So, is that TMI? I don't know. Was that TMI? I mean,
see, it's the same old Aaron. Same old. We're good.
I'm like an old man, though.
Everything's.
Have you ever seen somebody my age with one of those brushes? No, of course not. You've never showered with somebody my age. Boy, I'm just self-immolating now.
This is getting worse. You know he's going to be like at 50. Ponytail, comb over. Okay, Aaron's going to have a convertible. All right.
The only thing that this little minute of television is missing is a cat filter over your face, Aaron.
Yeah, just tell us I'm not a cat. I'm a live person.
I can neither confirm nor deny at this point.
Oh, nice. We have more of this, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. More buy, sell, or hold coming your way after the break here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. And Aaron will continue to regale us with habits of bathing his nooks and crannies when we return. If you are thinking of getting involved in the real estate market, make sure you go in with a real estate agent that you can trust, especially during these unprecedented times. Bing. Thank you, Todd. Because this can be a stressful thing. I've bought a home, moving out of our first apartment, and then I did the thing where we sold that home to buy the one we're in now. And then you're burning the candle at both ends in the real estate market. And things were a lot more certain back then than they are right now. Thankfully, we found an agent that you can trust. Now we want to help you find one that you can trust as well. And the name kind of says it all. Just go to the website, realestateagentsitrust.com, a company started by Glenn Beck and his associates who were tired of real estate agents who talked a good game but then didn't deliver the results as promised when needed the most. So they didn't want you to suffer the same fate as them. So this is a referral of agents that you're going to find all over the country whose track records of success have been fully vetted. Otherwise, they wouldn't get listed. So before you make the next move, your next move should be to realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, the website, realestateagentsitrust.com. Let's get to part 2 of Buy, Sell, or Hold.
Chuck Gregory says, after this last week's episode of WandaVision, Disney accelerates introduction of X-Men into the Marvel Universe. Are you guys still digging WandaVision?
I think from episode 2 on, it has been brilliant.
I've been, I don't want to say begging, but strongly encouraging Bella to let's go ahead and do this year's rewatching of the Marvel movies. And she doesn't want to yet, but this has been tiding us over.
The blip back scene in the 2 episodes ago, I thought was one of the best scenes that Marvel has ever produced. That scene was, I thought. But I want you to answer this question first. All right? You go first. Because I'm afraid my answer might suck all the oxygen out of the room, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to give you your answer. I'm going to let you go to first.
Well, the rumor was that was going to happen. This seems like an obvious yes based on the actor. I mean, what they did. I mean, how many? We're way beyond 4-dimensional chess into whatever dimension. If they're not doing that, I mean, if this is double agent, triple agent, I think it can be as confusing already sometimes within the Marvel universe to keep things straight. So if this isn't that, I don't know what this could possibly be. Here's my greater concern. The one I do have with all of this is that this whole multiverse thing, which I think is absolute, I thought it was genius that they were going this direction. One, because it's so hard to follow up on the big end game, end of the universe fights. This is pure brilliance, to the way they're doing it through Wanda. Again, they're saying it what I thought it would be based on my conversations with you, through her pain, who are suffering the consequences of the fight. It's not just clean. I think that's brilliant. But this is the multiverse way, maybe a way of them really going all in on our social justice world, but doing it in a way where it's the multiverse is explaining it, so they can do it without having to own it. I have some concerns about that.
So I don't believe this is a crossover, from a multiverse crossover into this show. Remember in Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man film, we were sold that Mysterio came from another Earth, right?
Yes.
And these elementals destroyed his Earth, crossed over because of what of the snap that opened up the multiverse. They crossed over, and they're now onto our realm, and he's crossed over with them to fight them, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that was in all the promotional material. You saying there's a multiverse? Like, they put that in the trailers. They put, Tom Holland's Spider-Man saying it, and then you find out at the end of the movie, it's a bait and switch, that the whole thing is an act, right?
Yes.
Mysterio is playing a role. But then we find out, and so they hyped up the idea of a multiverse of where they were going next. And then in the first movie back, they dangled it out there, then yanked it away. And then you find out that they are actually going there, because that's literally the title of the next Doctor Strange movie, right? All the crossover stars that are being cast in the next Spider-Man movie that's filming as we speak. It's clear that they were going there. They were foreshadowing it, but it was a tease. That's exactly what I think is happening right here. This is a tease of these X-Men. I don't believe that's Pietro. I think it's the villain of the show. I think it's whoever the actual villain is shows up, because what was going on in that episode? Vision is beginning to piece together this whole thing is wrong. And he's confronting her. And they're about to throw down right there in the living room, right? They're up in the air. They're gearing up power. They're powering up. I mean, they're going to throw this thing. They're going War of the Roses right in the living room, right? And then the doorbell rings. Just happens to break up what was a moment that was going to bring some closure here, okay? And then what does she say when the doorbell rings? I didn't make that happen.
Right.
See, I don't think that is the Quicksilver from this Fox universe. I think it's teasing maybe what they might eventually do in order to bring the X-Men and stuff in. But I think that it's whoever the villain is, the real villain here, which is probably one of two characters from the that when she's been a good guy, at times she's been a bad guy with her dad, Magneto. But when Scarlet Witch has been a good guy, two of her villains have been the Grim Reaper and Mephisto, who is the devil of the Marvel Universe, the Satan, Lucifer of the Marvel Universe. I think that's who that is. And watch the clip again, when she says, Pietro, he kind of looks at her and is like, yeah, okay. Also, how would Quicksilver of the Fox universe know that Vision is dead? How would he even know when he says, "Hey, what's up with that popsicle?" Meaning he's assumed room temperature. How would he know he's dead? How would he even know what a vision is? So I think that's the actual villain who's been manipulating Wanda the entire time. It's just a matter of whether it's the Grim Reaper or whether it is Mephisto. And I think that is the Ralph that the neighbor, who I think is a character out of the comics named Abigail Harkness, who's a witch that's married to the devil, that is one of Scarlet Witch's villains. I think that's her Ralph that she keeps talking about, Catherine Hahn's character.
Yeah.
That's the Ralph she's talking about, is whether it's the Grim Reaper or Mephisto, and I think that is who Evan Peters is playing. I think we're getting bait. I think we're getting fooled like we did with a tease, like we did with the Spider-Man movie. That's my theory.
So it is 8-dimensional chess. Because why then? Why choose that actor then?
That's a good question. I think it's because the devil can't raise people from the dead. Remember in that episode earlier on, the dog dies, and who I think Catherine Hahn is playing is the witch, Abigail Harkness, the villain, one of the villains of the Marvel Universe. And hey, So this whole thing, I think, has been done to manipulate Wanda in creating I think her children are actually the first two mutants. And I think what we're going to find is that the X-Men are coming in here because the snap activated the dormant mutant gene in all of these people. And I think her children that her and Vision had are actually the first two mutants. Like, I don't think they're going to bring in the X-Men. I don't think Hugh Jackman's coming in to play, Old Man Logan in the MCU. I think they're going to do their own X-Men. But I think the origin story of those X-Men will be that the snap is what activated that gene. I think her two children that her and Vision just had, I think this whole thing has been about whoever the dark force is behind this, Mephisto or the Grim Reaper. Either they both want they want her to make children. This whole thing's been about, you guys got to have babies, and yet there aren't any more, everything's for the children, yet there aren't any children anywhere else in Westview, right? All right. It's very Village of the Damned or Children of the Corn, okay? And then the other thing is, so the devil cannot procreate. The other thing that he can't do is resurrect. And so when they bring her the dead dog and her children say to Wanda, bring him back to life. And what does Abigail Harkness say? You can do that? So I think they're manipulating her into doing that. Okay. And so the reason why they brought this guy in is because maybe he is from a multiverse, or they just grab somebody from hey, that's her brother. They can't bring back the other actor because he's dead. All right. She would have to bring him back. Like, they didn't bring Vision back, did they? Who brought Vision back? She did. And so I think they can't bring anybody back from the dead either. And so they had to just go into the multiverse and grab the first version of Pietro that they could find, and it would just, as an image to sell her, and it just happened to be this guy. That's my theory, anyway, that's actually the villain of the show.
Something tells me Kevin Feige really, really likes 8-dimensional chess, because that's fascinating. Conservative Hedgehog says Darth Vader. Do
you know how many single women are listening to this right now?
Like, why did
and the last 10 minutes, I said, how are you guys all married? Right? Because let's face it, if we didn't feel pressure to move on, the three of us could have just sat here for another 15 minutes hashing this out and ended the show on it, right?
Probably.
And every single woman in this audience is like, please make this stop. Go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
In that vein, Darth Vader would beat Muhammad Ali in a fight.
Come on, man. Of course. I mean, that's just not even close. I mean, for real?
It's a little dispiriting to read that immediately after what we just talked about.
Yes. Yeah. Bye.
Bobby Angulo says, Aaron procrastinates till the very last second. Did I piss off our audience somehow?
You're the one that chose these. You're dunking on yourself.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
You played yourself there, Mr. Chappelle.
Aaron Reale says, at the rate we're going, the top 3 holidays of 2021 will be Vaxgiving, Maskmas, and Trans Year's Day.
Gosh, he's so much better when he's not talking about Star Wars. Bye.
Oh, gosh, that's brilliant. I got to buy that. That's great.
Alexander Rogers says, 2021 needs a modern ice bucket challenge by nominating every Karen and Neil mask cultist we know to take the pepper spray challenge.
I love this. So for those of you that don't know, I mentioned him yesterday. I saw a tweet from him a few days ago where he said, hey, the droplets, the metrics of pepper spray are very similar to COVID. So let's find out how secure your mask really is. Put your mask on and pepper spray right into your mask, and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And if it works out, I'll put my mask on. If not, then I think we've made our point. I love that. I think it's brilliant.
Yep.
So bye.
Triple mask.
Yep. Next, this one is, I think, directed at Todd. Elliot Evans says, celebrating the return of a 7-year absent video game is, quote, the downfall of civilization, but obsessing about a 44-year-old movie is a healthy remembrance of your childhood.
What 44-year-old movie?
Is that Rocky?
Oh, the Rocky? Yeah, the first Rocky movie? Okay.
Buy, sell, or hold.
Yeah, I'll let you answer that.
I'm obviously selling. If you don't look at the obvious data about video game obsessions, particularly in young males, it doesn't mean that you and your thing. You prove my point. Like, why are you so obsessed about this? It is obviously statistically a problem for young males. They go into a world, they don't come out, they don't care about anything. I've got the science on my side of it. It doesn't mean you have that problem. But you seem to be showing that you're a little insecure about that. All right? So just it's nonsense. I don't care about Steve playing video games. It matters. But you know what he does? He goes to church. He takes care of his family. He knows his bleepity bleep about everything, okay? He's different. That does not describe most of you who dive into video games as 44-year-olds. It doesn't.
I got some very disappointing news yesterday that MLB The Show 21 has been pushed back to April 20th, by the way. I'm sorry, it was a bad time to mention that.
I've got another video game I'm obsessed about.
You want to add anything, Steve?
No.
Okay.
I'm good with what he said, for the most part.
John Endicott says, MLB rule changes will do more to damage the game than the length of game or pace of play ever did.
Did you feel like, and maybe we're just so glad to get it back, but did you feel like the game was ruined by the nuances and evolutions that they decided to try out in the COVID year last year? Did you feel like it? Because I didn't.
No, but the whole...
But I'm not as big of a baseball guy as you are.
The whole year... Like, I can't remember... Primarily, are we dealing with second base and the relief pitcher rule?
Yes, yeah.
I'm...
Like, I would get rid of the relief pitcher rule, okay? I kind of like the idea of starting on second base when we get into extra innings. I kind of like that. But I'm also like a fan of hockey, which has shootouts, and you're a fan of soccer, which has shootouts, right? I kind of like that idea.
I don't think either one is the end of the world. The greater problem is just baseball and its pace of play in general. This is attached to the video game conversation. This is the real thing. That's real life. And people don't want real life. They want the fiction that they dive into it in whatever they often get into in video games. And baseball's boring. Well, if you believe that and you would rather choose whatever video game you're playing, you're silly. You just do not.
See, I think you actually, and I used to say this with Schilling all the time when him and I were working together. I think it would be smarter for baseball to actually embrace that distinction. And then instead of changing the game at your ballparks, add different attractions and stuff, and there's security there. If the kids get bored in the third inning, hey man, there's the arcade down there. Hey man, there's the slide. Hey man, they've got a VR theater over there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Go knock yourself out.
Baseball,
but it's the dead of summer. Things are slower, more relaxing. I think you actually, instead of turning away from that distinction, I think you should lean into it all the more. Actually,
for the most part, 4-hour baseball games as a regular thing.
Agreed.
Is not a good thing. That you should try to do what you can to speed up the pace of play. That's not a dumb thing, but baseball is just baseball.
As long as it's not dumb what you're doing, I agree. Yeah. Like, for example, I think it's a waste of time for pitchers to hit. Always have. First thing I do in every MLB The Show season I get is put the DH in both leagues. So it's one thing. Not all 3.5-hour games are the same. If I'm watching the pitcher strike out or sack bunt 5 times in 3.5 hours, it's not the same as if I'm watching a guy who has a legitimate chance to take the ball yard 5 times. No one complained Lord of the Rings movies were too long. You complained the Pirates of the Caribbean movies were too long. But anyway.
That's it for Buy, Sell, or Hold.
All right. Any final thoughts, Aaron? Got about a minute?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's weird to have a brush in your shower.
He went back.
I don't get what the big deal is.
It's not. That. I've got a brush in my shower. We just, I just
don't talk about it on the air.
It's not like a don't ask, don't tell about your shower brush. It's just not something people volunteer. I got some place I couldn't reach, so I bought a brush. All right. Well,
my back.
Thanks, Todd.
How do I follow that? I prefer not to.
Yeah, you don't. We're going to stick around, do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck here on Blaze TV radio and podcast. Until then, John 3:17.